From soft and smooth to coarse and rough, Anakin Skywalker's journey to become Darth Vader has been a rocky one. It's not easy being the scariest guy in the galaxy. Now that Obi-Wan has had his rematch, this is everything you need to know about the fall, rise, and redemption of Darth Vader. 4 decades before he walked onto Princess Leia's ship as the embodiment of the evil Empire, when audiences got their first glimpse of Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker was born on Tatooine as the child of a slave woman named Shmi Skywalker. When the Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn asked Shmi about the boy's father years later, she simply told him that there wasn't one, leading Qui-Gon to deduce that Anakin had been conceived by the Force entities known as midichlorians. Though it hasn't been conclusively stated, it's heavily implied in both the film and the comics that Anakin's conception was caused by the manipulations of the Sith Lord Darth Plagueis and his apprentice Darth Sidious. Anakin showed tremendous intelligence and skill from a very young age, and was so adept at mechanics and repairs that he built the protocol droid C-3PO before he'd turned 10. He was also a skilled pod racer, making him a rarity as human reflexes were usually too slow to allow them to survive in the sport, which drew the attention of a pair of Jedi Knights. After learning about Anakin's curious parentage and testing his midichlorian count, Qui-Gon became convinced of Anakin's potential as a Jedi. With Qui-Gon's encouragement, Anakin won his freedom in a pod race and accompanied Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan to Coruscant, sadly having to leave his mother behind. Qui-Gon took Anakin before the Jedi High Council, convinced that the boy could be the chosen one who would bring balance to the Force. Masters Yoda and Mace Windu were wary of Anakin's age and his fearful demeanor, but Qui-Gon pleaded for the opportunity to train him anyway. In the Battle of Naboo, Anakin piloted a starfighter against the Trade Federation, proving that his Jedi reflexes and skill as a pilot extended beyond pod racing. After the battle was over, he discovered that Qui-Gon had been killed at the hands of Darth Maul, and Obi-Wan made a vow to train Anakin himself, in keeping with his lost master's wishes. The High Council consented, and Anakin became a Jedi Padawan. Anakin spent the next decade training as Obi-Wan's apprentice, and proved himself as an immensely skilled Jedi who also had a tendency towards recklessness. As a young man, he reconnected with then-Senator Padme Amidala on Coruscant, when he and Obi-Wan were tasked with guarding her life after an assassination attempt.
We will find out who's trying to kill you, Padme. I promise you.
We will not exceed our mandate, my young Padawan learner.
While Obi-Wan sought to track down the people behind the attempt on Padme's life, Anakin stayed behind as her personal bodyguard and escorted her back to Naboo. The Senator and the Jedi soon fell in love, but Anakin's darker tendencies intruded as he became tormented by visions of his mother. With Padme at his side, Anakin traveled to Tatooine, where he learned that a now married and freed Shmi Skywalker had been abducted by Tusken Raiders. Anakin tracked down the Tusken tribe and his mother, who died in his arms after seeing him one last time. In a rage, Skywalker slaughtered the entire tribe and vowed to Padme that he would become powerful enough to prevent the people he loved from dying, beginning his descent into darkness. After the Tusken Raider incident, Anakin and Padme left Tatooine to rescue Obi-Wan, who'd been taken prisoner by Separatists. Unfortunately, they, like Obi-Wan, were soon captured by Separatist leader, Sith Lord and former Dracula Count Dooku, and sentenced to death in a gladiatorial arena. As they tried to fight their way out alongside the Jedi, reinforcements arrived in the form of a clone army that had been discovered by Obi-Wan. Under the leadership of Yoda and Mace Windu, they defeated the Separatists in what would become the first battle of the Clone Wars. With the battle still raging, Anakin and Obi-Wan engaged Dooku in a lightsaber duel, but Anakin's recklessness got the better of him when he tried to fight Dooku alone. The Sith defeated Anakin, cutting off Anakin's right arm before being defeated by Yoda. In the days that followed, Anakin and Padme were married in secret, with the droids C-3PO and R2-D2 serving as witnesses, because the Jedi Order forbade such romantic attachments. As the Clone Wars gained intensity, Anakin was promoted to Jedi Knight and became a key general for the Republic. His abilities and confidence grew, but so did his recklessness and, by extension, his fear of losing those he loved. In an effort to help, Yoda suggested Anakin could learn how to let go of people by taking on an apprentice of his own who would one day ascend beyond his training. He was paired with a young Padawan named Ahsoka Tano, and while the two initially had friction due to Ahsoka's feisty nature, they ultimately became friends.
Master, if you've taught me one thing, it's that nothing is easy when you're around.
Ahsoka rose in prominence alongside her master as the wars went on, until she was framed and arrested for a bombing at the Jedi Temple that was actually carried out by one of her friends. Ahsoka was expelled from the Jedi Order, But Anakin and Padme believed in her innocence, and were ultimately able to gain evidence that led to her acquittal at trial. Though she was offered readmission to the ranks of the Jedi, Ahsoka was disillusioned after her trial, and she chose to leave the Jedi behind. Witnessing the treatment of his former apprentice only served to further frustrate Anakin, who was beginning to lose faith in the Jedi High Council. By the end of the Clone Wars, Anakin's growing abilities and his purported status as the Chosen One caught the attention of the Sith Lord Darth Sidious. Sidious was manipulating the entire war from behind the scenes, via his dual roles as a Sith and as Sheev Palpatine. Yes, that's his first name, the Chancellor of the Republic. Palpatine finally made his move on Skywalker in the waning days of the war, urging him to kill Dooku in cold blood in the midst of space above Coruscant. Anakin complied, decapitating Dooku, and Palpatine continued grooming Anakin as his agent by appointing him as his emissary to the Jedi Council. The Council submitted to the Chancellor's wishes, but they refused to grant Anakin the rank of Master, further inflaming his frustrations, though Obi-Wan continued to champion him.
I have trained you since you were a small boy. I have taught you everything I know, and you have become a far greater Jedi than I could ever hope to be.
Unfortunately, the denial of Anakin's knighthood, coupled with his frequent visions of Padme, who was then pregnant, dying in despair, led Palpatine to finally reveal himself to Anakin, convincing him that he could stop the death of his loved ones by using the dark side of the Force. Conflicted, Anakin first revealed that Palpatine was a Sith Lord, and then helped Palpatine kill Mace Windu in the hopes of learning how to save Padme. Though distressed by his betrayal of the Jedi, Anakin submitted himself to his new master, who in turn dubbed him Darth Vader. Palpatine dispatched Vader to the Jedi Temple as part of his Great Jedi Purge, where Vader brutally slaughtered any Force user in his path, including the children. Vader then journeyed to the fiery planet Mustafar, with Obi-Wan and Padme having learned of his betrayal following to stop him. Enraged by the idea that his old master and his wife were working together to betray him, he used the Force to choke Padme into unconsciousness, then engaged Obi-Wan in a duel. Ultimately, Obi-Wan gained the high ground in the fight, severed both of Vader's legs, and left him near a lava ditch to die. Palpatine saved his apprentice, then outfitted him in a life-preserving suit of armor, transforming him into the half-machine Vader we all know and love. Palpatine also told Vader that he'd accidentally killed Padme and their unborn child back on Mustafar. In truth, Padme had died of a broken heart, but not before secretly giving birth to Anakin's twin children, Luke and Leia, who were hidden away from him as they grew up. Vader then took his place at Palpatine's side as the Republic became the Galactic Empire, although he still harbored a desire to bring Padme back at all costs. Immediately after receiving his new robotic body armor, Darth Vader was tasked by Palpatine with his first lesson as a Sith, building a new lightsaber. But this wasn't as easy as Vader had hoped. As it turned out, he was to retrieve the lightsaber of a Jedi and corrupt its kyber crystal, turning it blood red. Eventually, Vader found Master Infilla, who had escaped Order 66's Jedi Purge due to his vow to remove himself from society as penance. After an intense battle, Vader killed the Jedi Master, stole his lightsaber, and destroyed Ambarla City in the process, though the battle nearly destroyed his new armor. After bending the kyber crystal to his will, Vader presented his new red lightsaber to his master, who was pleased with the results. Using his engineering skills, Vader reconstructed and enhanced his own armor to further insulate himself from any potential weakness. After this, Vader was introduced to the Grand Inquisitor and his Inquisitors, former Jedi tasked by the Empire with hunting down and destroying any trace of the Jedi Order. Palpatine then assigned their training to Lord Vader, who began using his own pain to fuel their hatred. As they scoured the galaxy in search of lost Jedi, Vader's power only grew, and he strayed further and further from his life as Anakin Skywalker. 2 decades passed as the Empire continued to rise, and Vader continued his efforts to eradicate the remaining Jedi. He also had to deal with Palpatine's schemes to encourage his competitive nature by drafting other warriors who could serve as Vader's replacement at the Emperor's side. It was during this era that Palpatine gifted Vader a mask belonging to Momin, an ancient Sith Lord and artist, whose spirit still possessed the mask. Vader used a gateway opened by Momin to search for Padme's spirit and bring her back, but instead he found darkness as her form disintegrated before his eyes. Vader came out of the experience convinced that both Padme and Anakin Skywalker were dead, and that his past no longer mattered. As dark and heartless as ever, Darth Vader became even more enraged in his pursuits of former Jedi and Empire conquests alike. However, Vader's vision showed him one other thing: a beacon of hope in the form of an unidentified young man who would soon meet.
I sense something, a presence I've not felt since...
Nearly 10 years after their last encounter, Darth Vader got wind of the location of his former Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi, now going by Ben. Under intelligence from the Third Sister, an Inquisitor and former Jedi youngling named Reva, Vader and his Inquisitors finally found Kenobi on the planet of Mapuzo. Vader tormented the small mining colony, killing everyone in his path until the Jedi revealed himself. Once he did, their rematch immediately commenced. This duel wasn't as elegant as their previous battle, as Kenobi was a bit out of practice and didn't put up much of a fight. In retaliation, Vader burned his former master in the same way that he himself had been burned on Mustafar nearly a decade earlier. Still, the rebellion helped Kenobi escape, and Vader pursued. In the chaos, Vader was betrayed by the Third Sister, thirsty for revenge after Anakin Skywalker's massacre at the Jedi Temple during Order 66. Vader quickly overpowered the former youngling and left her to die so that he might continue after Kenobi. Eventually, Darth Vader caught up with the Jedi and they dueled once more, this time both at full power. Although Vader first overpowered Kenobi, finally gaining the high ground, the Jedi found new strength to defeat the Sith Lord. Here, Vader acknowledged that Obi-Wan didn't kill Anakin, he did it himself. As Kenobi left, believing Anakin was truly dead, Vader was called back by the Emperor, forced to abandon his revenge. A few years later, Vader was tasked with finding a group of rebels on a ship called Ghost. After a fierce battle against the Jedi Kanan Jarrus and his apprentice Ezra Bridger on the planet Lothal, Lord Vader failed to capture this group. The Ghost crew would go on to work with Vader's former apprentice Ahsoka Tano and the Rebellion, while Vader continued to send Inquisitors after them and occasionally pursue them himself. On the ancient Sith homeworld Malachor, Ezra and Kanan eventually found the Sith Temple, where they encountered Vader once again. As the Sith Lord fought the young Jedi Master and his apprentice, Ahsoka arrived to help. It's here that she finally learned the dark truth. Anakin Skywalker didn't die at the end of the Clone Wars. He became Darth Vader. Vader attempted to convert Ahsoka, believing that the Emperor would forgive her treason if she gave up other Jedi and the rebels. But Ahsoka refused.
Then you will die.
As the Sith Temple collapsed around them, Vader and Ahsoka continued to duel until Ahsoka miraculously escaped, leaving Vader defeated and alone once more. Imperial scientists and engineers, including Galen Erso and Orson Krennic, worked hard to build a super weapon capable of destroying entire planets, the Death Star. But Erso was secretly a rebel sympathizer who leaked the Death Star's weakness to his daughter, Jyn, and a group of rebels. After testing the Death Star on the moon of Jeddah, Krennic was sent to Darth Vader's fortress on Mustafar.
You seem unsettled.
Vader reminded Krennic that the Death Star was not officially supposed to exist, and that he should be careful. The rebels soon attacked the planet Scarif, where the plans for the Death Star were being kept, forcing the Empire to act swiftly. The Empire used the Death Star to destroy the rebels on the ground, along with Krennic. But the plans were transmitted to a nearby rebel ship, which Vader had secretly invaded. The Death Star plans escaped on the Tantive 4, which, unbeknownst to Vader, also housed his own long-lost daughter, Leia. The Rebellion's unexpected advantage forced Vader to pursue the rebels. He managed to capture Princess Leia, who sent a message to Obi-Wan Kenobi on Tatooine before her capture. Grand Moff Tarkin, the Death Star's commander, had Vader torture Leia, who he did not know was his daughter, and even used the space station to destroy her adoptive homeworld of Alderaan, as they tried to gain the location of the Rebel Alliance's secret base. Stubborn like her biological father, Leia refused to give up her friends. It wouldn't be long before allies came to rescue Leia, which meant Vader had an unexpected encounter with an old friend. When this small group, which included Vader's long-lost son Luke Skywalker, who he was also unaware of, and his former Jedi Master Obi-Wan Ben Kenobi, infiltrated the Death Star to rescue Leia, Vader and Kenobi fought for the final time. Vader killed his old teacher, but the rescue was successful, and the rebels were clear to use the Death Star plans. Unfortunately, in all the commotion, Tarkin discovered the rebel base on Yavin 4, after secretly tracking the Millennium Falcon there. In an epic space battle, Vader nearly killed Luke, but the young Skywalker was saved at the last moment by Han Solo, and Vader's starfighter was sent hurtling into space. Guided by the ghost of Ben Kenobi, Luke blew up the Death Star.
I knew you'd come back, I just knew it. Well, I was gonna let you get all the credit and take all the reward.
The destruction of the Death Star was a major victory for the Rebellion, and a huge blow to the Empire. This set Vader on a journey of self-discovery. After the attack, Luke Skywalker, Leia Organa, and Han Solo went on a mission to blow up an Imperial facility when they encountered Vader once more. Luke attempted to duel the Sith Lord, and in the process, Vader recognized Luke's lightsaber as his former weapon of choice, the same one he'd lost to Obi-Wan Kenobi on Mustafar 20 years earlier. After learning that the Emperor hoped to replace him, Vader put his own team together, including bounty hunters Boba Fett and Black Krrsantan, and the archaeologist Dr. Aphra, to learn more about the boy who blew up the Death Star. Fett learned that the boy who dueled Darth Vader was named Skywalker. At that moment, Vader realized that he'd been deceived. In keeping with the Sith rule of two, in which apprentices kill their masters to ascend to masterhood, Vader plans to convert his son to the dark side, kill the Emperor, and rule the galaxy. After learning the truth about his son, Darth Vader continued to search for Luke to join forces with him in order to usurp the Emperor. Dr. Aphra learned Luke's location on the world of Rogus Vaz, which was also home to a long-lost Jedi temple, and eventually shared the info with the Sith Lord, who swiftly went to retrieve his prize. Though he destroyed nearly 2 whole rebel squadrons, Vader was quickly defeated after Luke sacrificed himself by ramming his X-Wing directly into Vader's TIE fighter, sending both father and son hurtling to the planet below. There, Vader fended off rebel troops, including a brief reunion with Leia, while Aphra attempted to abduct Luke. Unfortunately for the Dark Lord, Luke's friends Han Solo, Chewbacca, R2-D2, and C-3PO all fought back, saving him and kidnapping Aphra for information on the Empire. Although he had failed to attain his son, Vader wouldn't quit. They would have to put his plan on pause while the Emperor sent him on various diplomatic missions to maintain order throughout the Empire after the Death Star's destruction. Eventually, Vader caught up with Aphra and seemingly killed her by releasing her into open space. Little did the Dark Lord know she survived with the help of her loyal allies. It wouldn't be much longer before Vader tracked Luke, and by extension the Rebels, down to their hidden base on the icy planet Hoth. The Empire invaded the planet while the Rebels evacuated, and Luke once again escaped Vader's clutches, but just barely. Shortly after this failure, Palpatine revealed his knowledge of Luke to Vader, and the two began working to bring the younger Skywalker over to the dark side. To achieve this, Vader launched a campaign to find Luke's friends on board the Millennium Falcon at all costs. With the help of bounty hunter Boba Fett, he eventually captured Han and Leia on Bespin, and used them as baits to lure Luke, who had been training to become a Jedi Knight with an exiled Yoda and the ghost of Ben Kenobi on the swamp planet Dagobah. The plan worked, and Luke arrived on Bespin to battle Vader and save his friends. Vader defeated the young Jedi in a lightsaber duel, severing Luke's right hand in the process, only to reveal to Luke that he was his true father. Vader pleaded with Luke, hoping that he would join him in overthrowing the Emperor, but Luke refused. Instead, the young Skywalker chose to fall to his death. Fortunately, he dropped through the bowels of a Bespin mining facility where he was rescued by Leia in the Millennium Falcon, leaving Darth Vader alone once more. After Luke's rejection and a visit to his childhood home of Tatooine, Darth Vader began an investigation into the death of his wife Padme and the birth of his son. During this investigation, he met a woman who looked almost exactly like the former Queen of Naboo, Padme's former handmaiden Sabe. They worked together for a while, searching Naboo for more evidence of who killed Padme. That is, until Vader himself eventually confessed to the crime. Sabe and her team fought Vader, but they were no match for his raw power. Upon entering Padme's tomb and scanning her corpse, Vader discovered a medical implant that led him to the Polis Massa asteroid field, which held the facility where Padme gave birth to Luke and Leia. Vader scanned the records and found a final recording of Padme speaking with his former master Obi-Wan, reminding him that there was still good in Anakin. Disappointed by his apprentice's mourning, the Emperor tortured and left Vader for dead on Mustafar, instructing him to rebuild himself. He did, and was eventually led to the Sith world of Exegol, where he was given a glimpse of the Emperor's true power as well as the Sith cloning programs it implemented, which would continue long after the Empire. After initially hoping to regain some agency, Darth Vader once again surrendered to his master, and Emperor Palpatine took his apprentice back with open arms. After seeing the Emperor's true power on Exegol, Darth Vader abandoned his dreams of Luke becoming his apprentice, believing Palpatine was too powerful to overcome. Instead, Vader decided to kill his son and continued to pursue him as he enforced the Empire's will across the universe. After the frozen and carbonized Han Solo was stolen from the Empire, Vader sought to retrieve him, believing that Luke would eventually return for his friend. Arriving at an auction for Solo, Vader learned that Crimson Dawn, a criminal organization once run by Darth Maul, now run by Solo's old flame, Kira, was selling the rebel smuggler. Upon attaining Solo, Vader encountered his son once more in an aerial battle, one that ended with Vader's TIE fighter crashing once again. Here, Luke even considered killing his father, ending the threat of Darth Vader for good, but he decided against it, still reeling from their previous encounter. Vader then continued to faithfully serve the Empire by hunting down and destroying the agents of Crimson Dawn. On his mission to end Crimson Dawn, he once again encountered Sabe, who led him to a colony of former Tatooine slaves on the world of Gabrador III, but only after revealing that she knew the truth about Anakin Skywalker. On that planet, Vader met two of his childhood friends from Tatooine, Kitster and Wald. Before the planned completion of the second Death Star, Palpatine planned to use the new superweapon as bait to ensnare and defeat the rebellion, all while using it to lure Luke Skywalker to the battle station. Luke re-emerged on Endor, where he surrendered to Vader. Luke was fully determined to redeem his father, just as Vader was once again determined to convert his son. Vader brought Luke before the Emperor, who attempted to provoke anger in him by revealing his plan to trap the rebels. After all, anger leads to the dark side. This sparked a final duel between Darth Vader and his son, and during the fight, Vader sensed in his son's mind that he had a sister, Vader's second child. Using this knowledge, Vader drew Luke's anger out, and Luke defeated Vader with force. But seconds before killing his father, Luke realized he was becoming just like Vader, so he tossed his weapon aside, refusing to join the dark side. Enraged, Palpatine retaliated with Force lightning. Watching his son die in agony, Vader reclaimed the good part of himself that Padme once spoke of and threw his master down the core shaft of the Death Star, seemingly killing him. Gravely injured by Palpatine, Darth Vader didn't have much longer to live. But with his dying breath, Anakin Skywalker returned to the light, assuring his son that he was right all along. The Rebels' victory at the second Death Star marked the beginning of the end for the Galactic Empire. Vader's legacy as a dark side legend lived on, however, and took root again in the form of his grandson, Leia and Han's kid, Ben Solo. Ben caught the eye of Snoke, a powerful dark side user and scholar who sensed the dark side potential in the Skywalker bloodline, and he sought to cultivate it within Ben. He succeeded, and Ben Solo rose up against his uncle, Jedi Master Luke Skywalker, ending Luke's attempt to rebuild the Jedi Order. When he finally turned to the dark side, Ben Solo changed his name to Kylo Ren and vowed to finish Vader's mission to eradicate the Jedi. He even acquired Vader's old helmet, which had been partially burned in his funeral pyre. Kylo Ren's quest to further his grandfather's legacy had dire consequences. Spurred on by Snoke, he helped the Empire-like First Order develop a Death Star-esque superweapon known as Starkiller Base, although it was destroyed by a band of rebels who dubbed themselves the Resistance. That victory came with horrific loss of life, including the death of Han Solo, murdered by Kylo himself. Kylo then pursued the Resistance across the galaxy before a final showdown with his old master, Luke Skywalker, or at least a force-fueled apparition he believed to be Luke. Their battle was just a ruse meant to give the First Order's enemies time to flee, and although Kylo was unable to defeat Luke in person, the effort it took to project his presence ultimately ended Skywalker's presence on the physical plane. Kylo's campaign of terror finally ended on Exegol, where he tracked a cloned Palpatine and faced off against him alongside the budding Jedi known as Rey, who, in a last-minute twist, turns out to be the old Emperor's secret granddaughter. Realizing too late that he'd been led horribly astray, Kylo helped Rey defeat Palpatine, sacrificing himself in the process and adding one final parallel to Vader's portion of the Skywalker saga.